Chapter 11.
This is Francesca. Some of you might know her. She did last give us permission to use this last time. Okay. Now, so when we split her, she's what? She's very well balanced.
Oh, that's why I'm not seeing.
That's why you're not seeing. You can't see the difference, really, can you? Yeah. She's in a very somebody coming really forward, very motivated, very harmonious. Okay, so very much in the middle, and obviously at the top there somewhere.
And even the lips don't look any different. Oh.
So we put a bit of makeup on her now, and you can see that the angles, just to show you the angles of the eyes, the nasolabial folds, and the lips.
Just the parting of her head.
Well, it's because the photograph is two photographs. The parting is probably slightly on one side. That's why normally when you use the program, you take the top line down to the forehead. Okay, I've time to also cut off their head, scalp them, because otherwise, if you've got someone with parting on one side, you get these ridiculous two partings on one portrait and only one parting, or no parting on the other one. This is Michael. You might remember Michael. Again, amazingly similar. Very difficult to tell the two apart, isn't it? Okay. So there are people around like this. Okay, so when you come in there and you draw those, and that's what the original program did. It drew those, or you had to draw them, and you can imagine the time of joining the dots up and then going to the computer. So let's have a little bit of antisocial behavior. Okay. This is where it begins to become fun. So left brain quality, left brain antisocial behavior is this is the logical person, remember. This is the swindler. Okay. The hooligan. Okay. The prostitute. So in a minute you'll be able to the boys can detect out the prostitutes. Okay. The gangsters and the sadists. Okay. Remember, these are down, probably not in the yellow zone. Obviously, they're in the red zone. So the right zone is not going to be the blue, it's going to be down in the green. Okay, we're in that. So this is your alcoholic. We talked about drug addiction and alcohol due to depression. This is your fornicator. Okay. This is your sectarian. That's not a word we use really in this country because it really applies to other countries, but it's a big issue in Russia where it was done. Sectarianism with breakaway groups, of different forms in the different Russian republics is very, very big, and they're really terrorists. And the masochist. So the person who likes pain is an introvert type of character. So these things on the right are more introverted. The ones on the left are more extrovert. Yes, he would. I can't remember his name, otherwise I would have done it. Well, you've got a picture of him.
Have you?
I expect so, but I can't remember what his name was to download one. But we've got a few here. Swindlers and alcoholics are basically reverses. Let me...
Breivik, that's it. Anders Breivik. Anders Breivik.
Yeah. Anders Breivik. Yeah, it's all right. I'm just. You got 20 years. Oh, they don't believe in long sentences in Norway, do they? So this is the very first time I've ever heard of similarities between relationships between alcoholics and swindlers. So are on the one hand opposite concepts. Swindler is secretive and builds artful and secretive plans. The alcoholics are open and with no desire to harm anybody and aspire to sincere dialogue and mutual respect. Both unconsciously aspire to destruction. Okay, so there's sort of similarities which we would never really thought about. And so what we've got here is our friend Mr. Nadir. The man from Del Monte. Okay. Uncomfortable. See, yes. So that both sides are uncomfortable, yeah. But again, you'd say the left one, you see what he's coming up with here when we did the analysis is he was left-brained, which you'd expect for a swindler, to be thinking carefully about things, how to swindle. Whereas the alcoholic, I put in Charles Kennedy. You remember the old Liberal leader? Yeah. Wow. He's right-brained. The left is a bit daft, isn't he? Yeah. Down syndrome. Oh, that's it. Hmm?
I'll tell you the right side looks a bit David Cameron at times.
Oh, David Cameron's quite an interesting one. He's got certain features, let's say. Yes, okay. Hooligans and drug addicts are opposite types. Hooligans destroy the environment and the drug addict destroys himself. Hooligans search for advantage over others, show cynicism and neglect, and the drug addict aspires to sincere dialogue, unearthly bliss and beauty. So there's sort of opposites. So an English football fan, that's the beast like that. That's we didn't really have any hooliganism at the Olympics, did we? Well, everybody was amazingly well behaved, and so we couldn't take it. Football for some reason seems to be much more than rugby, doesn't it? And what? Yeah, it attracts a particular hooligan type of person, and cricket doesn't. What is? Rugby.
People watch it as a family, whereas after football, people don't go and watch it as a family.
Well, they did. Fathers and sons apparently did. What? They can't afford it anymore, no. All you got to do is subscribe to Sky now, anyway. This was an interesting. I got this off the internet. This is an addict. But what was amazing is the picture of before, 1.5 years before, is the top one there. Then she became an addict. I guess, I think she's a cocaine addict. Look at the difference in the whole face there. Very sad. You know, the addict is a depressive. It's right, it's down in the green zone there. You pick them out there and just, it's done nothing to bring joy and happiness to her. Prostitutes and fornicators are opposite phenomena. Prostitutes search for gain and fornicators for pleasure. They are united by egoistic exploitation of the mechanism of the most sacred phenomena in nature, origin of life. Okay. So, what you tend to find with prostitutes, and this is really, really interesting, is you find a hardened person on one side and a little child on the other. Okay. Fear is a little child, which is what you get on the left there. But you've got, the left one is the hardened one, the right one is the little child. So you see this little child in there, which has missed out on childhood and is still there. But they're usually forced by pimps or by their mother often. Avtandel tells me in Moscow, and I thought girls were very friendly at the hotel in Moscow. That's right. I thought, sitting having a drink at the bar, and very nice, very friendly girls, and attractive, so as well, and yes. That's right.
But they don't look anything like that, did they?
No, they're real beauties, and yeah.
They know what
But he soon taught me how to tell them, and
they're actually male.
no, they weren't male. No, very beautiful. But he said, Chris, you know, the thing is that 9 out of 10, their mothers are prostitutes as well, and they're brought up into that. You know, they stand no chance at all. So who's the fornicator then? So I put him in because he's just gone through difficulties.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so in this case again you can see very different, very right brain. The prostitute is the left brain, okay. The right is the pleasure. Okay, gangsters versus sectarians have opposite purposes. Gangsters do not carry new and global ideas. Their task is simple and clear: to grasp material values, plunder, take away and humiliate. Sectarians are filled with mysterious importance, possessed by super values, illusionary universal ideas. They are ready to fall victim to achieve their noble purposes. On the other hand, gangsters and sectarians are uniform in their structure, which is based on secret, moral, rigid hierarchy and a degree of consecration in the secret. So you usually have to, they're sects, aren't they, that you have to join, and you can't lead the gang and all this sort of thing. So they have both ideas. So that's Al Capone. He's got nasty eyes, yeah, you're right there. And this is an interesting, you've got to be very careful when you go into the internet and when you ask questions like that. But this one was a Russian female break dancer who converts to Islam and promptly blows herself up the next day. That was quick, isn't it? So again, you've got that little girl on the left-hand side and that more determined one on the right. But here you've got down in see the extreme green what it's come up with. That's your suicider. But what a thing to do. You've either got to be so depressed or so highly motivated to blow yourself up to, cause problems.
She danced away to the pearly gate.
Yes, could dance away. Yes, but the pearly gates of hell, by the looks of it, she was not too far off there. Now, lastly, as we break for lunch, sadists and masochists, this is where, Paul, you come into, you making sure you know left and right, are based on opposite propensities. Sadists take pleasure when another man or woman is tormented. And the masochist takes pleasure when he, I don't know why he keeps putting he or she, is tormented. Sadomasochism, on the other hand, is going from one extreme to another. That's the person at, left, right, at the bottom. He destroys himself and other people and is unpredictable. So, who should we have as a sadist? Trevor. Trevor. We can't put any other names to it, I'm afraid. Trevor. Trevor prides himself on being a sadist. Okay. Maybe we should cut this off when I think of the video. I did put, originally I put as the sectarian, I put the leader of Iran on there. And I showed Avtar doing my face. He said, God, he said, I'll have a visit in Moscow in no time. He said, take that off, Chris. Can't put that on the internet. So Rihanna, who's a self-confessed masochist. She loves her tattoos and her studs and everything else. So there you see the right brain. Most performing artists, as I say, along that are right brain. Unfortunately, they're down in the green when there's that slight depression and things. But it's very creative, but it's not always in a creative way. So I think I put her up in, I think she comes up in the middle there, but just in the lower. So about on the line of the conception vessel. Yeah, she's not a deep down masochist, but she just confessed last week that she's a bit of one and has, her studs and her belts and everything else. So I put her about there. About a serious case, and you probably might know people would be further down. So that's David 2. Now I think I'm a bit too far to his right, aren't I? Should we go across again? Is that better? Yeah. So I think we're all right on the other ones, so let's split him. Yeah, the nose is a pretty good split, I think. The bridge of the nose is a pretty good split there, isn't it? He's definitely looking different, isn't he? Yeah. As I say, he's probably not a really good one to do, because I think, was it Barry who was over on the extreme somewhere? Who was it who had the three? I think it was you, wasn't it? Yeah. Barry would be a better one to do, because he was on C position, so we should be able to bring him across better. So we might get the photographer to do another picture. Okay. Yeah. 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 But I thought that was very interesting what he described, because he could actually feel the tension changing within the cranium, and as he walked, and therefore the dural tension was different. So you got that remodeling, and that's what really sometimes people say, I feel a bit strange after the treatment, and they do. Yes, and it may take a day or so to get over. So don't worry if the patient rings you up and says, "Oh, I feel." Just bear with it, or come in and we do one more session and then it changes it again. Because it's a big change in there. Not for him so much, but for some people it's a huge change. Of what, the perception of taste and touch and so on comes up with. Should we go back to, switch to this one? So the most important thing, once you start to workshop, is remember that when you do this, you're going to lose everything. So perhaps don't do it just at the moment until you're absolutely sure. Okay, because you won't be able to then do any other testing on the chemistry side or to make sure whether those oils are right and so on. So I want you to all do it, and we will do the sensory input, but don't do it until we're absolutely ready, because you won't be able to do anything else, because everything will be fine. Okay, so. Now, just a few. No photography would be complete without Joan Collins. A little bit of beast-like in there. Only because of the makeup, yeah.
If you advance it then,
Can't really tell if they're really much and they're not smiling.
Like the dentures are.
On the right,
The right, yeah.
if you look at smile, it looks almost artificial.
Oh, really?
Honestly, on the left picture, it's a natural smile.
Yeah. Well, we did come up, or I came up with the conclusion that she's left-brained.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's something.
And she's also right at the top there, very clever. Yeah. Her eyes look very, yeah. So we don't put her too far right. The nose angles are, the nasolabial folds and the mouth are slightly different. So that's why I put her in the middle. This doesn't show up very well. This.
Depends how much plastic surgery she's had.
Well, this is an issue that obviously cosmetic surgery does alter the face.
But she doesn't have any.
No. She claims she hasn't, yeah. Okay. What Avtandil showed me that a lot of the plastic surgeons in the States are using this now, and so they take a picture of your left and your right side, and then you run it through a morphing program, which it's a free one, you can download it. So you get the left face and the right face, and then you do sort of 20 or 30 slides between the two. And so it'll run through from the left to the right, so you can see your face changing. And then you press the button where you want the surgeon to stop. And you say, I want to be that person. So when you looked, as somebody observed and said, I don't see that, he doesn't look like that. He does look like that, but it depends on which side. So in Barry's case, it was very different left to right. So he could, usually people will stop in the middle and say, that's what I want to be like. And that's what we see. But we don't want to be the left, or we don't want to be the right. So the biggest difference, I think, with Joan there is the size of the face is different, isn't it? And I thought that was really significant when I first came back from Russia the first time I saw this, without meeting the programmer. But he said, no, it's not significant. The size, a lot of people have less development on one side than the other. It's not that, it's the eyes and, it's the perception, not necessarily just the bony structure, it's the muscles in there which are the most important, the tone of the muscles out there. Now this one's interesting. Now, yes, look at those eyes, and what you're about to see is very frightening. That's probably why you don't put the hair on too much. And this one. Oh, your very own favourite. Oh. Not bad. Where do you think most comedians are? In the green, aren't they? Yeah. Yeah. That dog. Manic. But quite an yeah. Definitely a happy side and a sad side. Okay. Well, it's really the story of his life, isn't it? Okay. So you had that melancholy, that would be down in the green bit. Now, there you are. What do you think of that one? Apart from the fact one is black, one's white. That's why you should have the light equally on both sides. Very even. The eyes are very different. Which one's looking at you? Yeah, he's right. He's right. Oh, his left one, you say, is looking.
Yeah, they're the opposite. The two pictures are the opposite. Yeah, they're the opposite. So the right side on the left, the darkest picture is on the left. Yes, I think he looks more directly at us.
With which face?
On the dark.
On the darker side is looking at you, is it?
And the other one seems to be just one way. And this one is down. The left side is down, and that one is
Now, I would interpret that different from what you just said. I would have said he's right-brained, he's coming to you, he's stable on the right side. He's the one you would choose as the leader. The one on the left looks a bit lost. And I think we'll edit this out, obviously. He's a man of great ideas, but no logic. The right one, the lighter one, the lighter one is where he is. He's a right brain. He's a thinker, and that's what it leads to. Because his policies have led, his logic has led to big trouble. He doesn't know, no, but he has the ideas. Yeah, that's right. So I think what you find is the right side is, you've got a man of great thought and spiritual consciousness, awareness, but not enough on the left brain. Okay. This is a bit of a problem, an issue for him, really, because he hasn't achieved what he set out to achieve in his first term. What David Hawkins in Truth versus Falsehood says, what you do is you measure the spiritual consciousness of the candidates. Okay. Then you measure the spiritual consciousness of the people who are eligible to vote in the election. Okay? Now, obviously, only 70-80% of people do vote. But you've got to say not of the American people, but of the people who are eligible to vote, okay? And you see the one who's closest to that. So the person who's closest to the people is the one who will win the election. Stun them all into silence. Okay, so let's have a look at the other candidate. So this is worrying. Very worrying indeed. This is a multi-millionaire who doesn't know the capital of Israel. Which is a bit worrying when he's over in Israel and he says the wrong place as the capital, isn't it? Especially, well, I wouldn't like to say, difficult to say which one is the leader, isn't it? Any ideas on any comments you want to make, Millie? Well, what, these two? Yeah, yeah. I know, see. Well, the mouth is very different, and the nasolabial folds are different. The eyes might be just about. So I think you're in probably column 2, but the question is where. Difficult. I'd say his right one was probably where he's coming forward. The left one looks a bit sort of lost. The computer, yeah, that's the computer, that's me. Well, that's what my interpretation at the time, but I didn't have him on a big screen, and he's toying with the idea that Israel could land a bomb on Iran, and I'm not sure whether that's a logical conclusion at the moment. The Americans have got a difficult decision, really, haven't they? A very difficult decision. What? No. But a lot with American politics goes with your family tradition of whether you're Republican or Democrat, and then you get Democrats for Republicans and Republicans to vote for Democrat and so on. But apparently, or the latest, was they're neck and neck in the polls. Even though the incumbent is usually pretty safe. Is he a Mormon? He's a Mormon. That's why he's trying to get the Jewish vote, by supporting the bombing of Iran. The only really incumbent he didn't make it in real terms was George Bush Sr. He didn't make it for a second term. But if George Bush Jr. can make it, if George W. can make it for a second term, you know, obviously the popular feeling for Obama must be, you know, not as good as what it was, let's say. Okay. So. I'll skip through that. You can read that in your hand. That's how the professor treats these types of people, by feedback. Okay. We'll just finish off this by just looking at the neurology, because I tried to work out, well, what is it about why the face is different, and really we're looking at the muscles. And we know the muscles of the face are run by the cranial nerves, and we've got the oculomotor nerve, which runs basically the eyes. We've got the abducens, which is the lateral rectus, and the trochlear, which does the superior oblique. There's general agreement the oculomotor fibers, somatic and automatic, are almost completely ipsilateral in their midbrain course. At the most, some accidents occur on the opposite oculomotor nerve to innervate the rectus superior. Okay. Now, this is the real important one, because the real important nerve for facial expression and everything is the facial nerve, is cranial nerve 7. And what we find here is, we get to the detail there, is we'll see that the cranial nerve here on the right-hand side, as it comes forwards, goes round the right-hand side. The cranial nerve from the other side comes down and supplies more of this part. So around the orbit, it's the same side. So it's not as easy totally as saying, you know, the right face represents the right brain. But around the orbit is a better one. And the muscle, which is the main one there, is the muscle that opens the eye, the orbital one. And that's the one of why I think it is that the more activity on that side opens the eye more. So the one which is the wider eye, I would say is 9 times out of 10 is the one that the person's coming from. So when you look at a person and you see one eye is wider, that's the quick way of determining it. And that's because of the facial nerve activity.
Is that really the dominant eye?
No, not necessarily the dominant eye, no. The dominant eye is what is coming in, okay? What we're looking at and what you've got to understand is what's going out. It's that person as they perceive the world. So it's the output, and that's what he's measuring by the wavelengths coming out of the cortex. And it's something we don't do very much in the West, is we're interested in what goes in, not what comes out. So the facial nerve receives fibers from both the corticonuclear tracts in the lower part of the pons, or by aberrant pyramidal tracts which descend the medial lemniscus. The fibers from the contralateral side contribute to that part of the nucleus which supplies the muscles of the lower part of the face. The fibers to that part of the nucleus supplying the muscles around the eye and forehead are bilateral. And then finally you've got the muscles there, and then finally you've got the TMJ muscles in there, which I don't think do a great deal to facial expression, unless a person's got a TMJ problem. They'll deviate the TMJ, but the actual facial expression is very much from the facial nerve. Facial processing has been studied using measurements of mean cerebral blood flow velocity in the mid-cerebral arteries. During facial recognition tasks, greater changes in the right middle cerebral artery than the left have been observed. It has been demonstrated that men were right lateralized and women left lateralized during facial processing, which is what we said, that men are more right-brained, more right brain activity and blood flow in there. Okay, so just to finish this one off, this is quite a nice little summary of, and you've got this even if you can't read it, it doesn't really matter, of the 4 quadrants. And what we know is that in David's case, he's up in here, in the blue, so who should he marry? He should marry here, okay? And these 2 people are not very dependent upon each other. They're very self-sufficient people, very self-confident in every way. And their dependence upon each other is relatively small. Only a little dependent upon her, and she's only a little dependent upon him. Okay? So that's quite surprising, isn't it? But they're very close, but they don't depend on each other. Probably they've both got good jobs, good incomes, and so on. This person needs this person. Okay? But when they have this person and this person, they are totally dependent upon each other. And this is disastrous, because they end up here. The collection is chaos. Okay? The collection here is perfect harmony. The collection down here is chaos. Okay, so this is why a green person really shouldn't marry a red, although but they do love each other, or they like each other, they're attracted, because they're totally dependent upon each other, one to keep them going. 90% dependent. Oh, is that some of the handout sheets? Yes, great, I was going to get you to do that. Okay. So this person and this person is like the father of this one. So this one relates positively and indulgently, considers him a little practical person. So the father doesn't have much time for the son, who really isn't up in the creative side, the positive creative side. And this is more the mother to the daughter. So this person here relates improvingly, indulgently, and considers him or her a good executor, providing that it is necessary constantly to supervise. So this person always needs supervision. Remember, these people do well in uniforms. Okay, they need to be instructed what to do all the time, and then they work well. This person and this person combination relates on the whole disapprovingly, this one to this one, and condemns him, his tiresome, stale, inattentive and irresponsive. So in other words, this one really has no time for this one. Okay. So if you're over here as a practitioner, where do you want your secretary, let's say, to be? Your secretary should be a yellow one. Okay? Ideally, if you're a blue, you need a secretary. Your right-hand person who's going to look after you should be here, or maybe here. You may not be able to trust them totally, but as long as you tell them what to do, they'll do it. They'll execute it entirely, but you certainly want one on the opposite side. One who loves paperwork if you don't like paperwork. Okay, do that. So I said as a man to him, what's the ideal woman for me? And you know what he said? He said, Jill's not here, is she? No. He said, you want a left brain woman during the day, Chris, and a right brain one at night. So there you are. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk now about the other two subjects.
End of chapter 11.